It's happening. UJ,
It is.
we're here. Okay, so everyone, welcome to episode, what is this, 5 of Another Perspective. I am here with one of my long-lost, dear friends, UJ Kabakci. And for you, I pulled out my sweatshirt and my camping chair because I just want to kick back and relax and catch up with my friend. I'm so glad you're here.
Great to be here. Thank you for asking to do this. Yeah.
Of course. I need to introduce you to everyone because I know you, but they don't. Y'all, this is my friend, UJ Kabakci, belovedly known to me as Yachi Kabakci. And he is from Turkey and now lives in, what town are you in?
I'm in Lincoln, Lincolnshire. So the name of the city is Lincoln, and the county of Lincolnshire, which is quite large. It's the second largest. Lincolnshire, yeah, the second largest county.
Is it Lincolnshire or Lincolnshire?
The way it's spelled is like Shire, but we say Lincolnshire, Oxfordshire, Cambridgeshire.
Okay. So I'm going to say Shire.
No one says Lincolnshire, so don't say Lincolnshire.
Oh, man. Okay. But you live in England.
I do.
Is where you got this fancy British accent. So UJ and I, for those who are listening, UJ and I met at Dallas Theological Seminary when you were fresh off the boat.
Yeah, that was my first time actually leaving my own country. I don't remember how old I was. I think I was 24 or 23 when I first arrived.
Wow.
And I only knew a handful of people when I arrived at that campus. You were probably the first one of the first ones that I actually met as my classmates who I hit off well with. So you befriended me.
I assaulted you with my personality, forced myself on you and into your world. Didn't I?
Yeah, thankfully. I mean, with you and others around me, I don't think I would have been able to make it to the first semester without your friendship and making me feel like I was your real brother.
You are for life. Yeah. So how would you describe the early days of our friendship, UJ?
It was fun. I mean, there were times where probably I wasn't expecting that much like warmth and kindness from anyone. You and others so welcoming and so interested. Like not just for the sake of making me feel welcome, but truly felt like you were interested in my story and who I was, and that was a reciprocal thing. So I fondly remember my first 6 or 7 months of Dallas Seminary with everyone being so lovely and welcoming.
You're being a little too kind. I think we became the kind of friends eventually, UJ, where I'm pretty sure I got on your nerves, but we did have some good times. Really good times. Beat bopping around Dallas, being dumb together, and being really smart together. It was a fun time. A fun time. So how long were you in the States? Remind me.
I think for 7 years.
7 years. And then what?
And then the reason why I came to the United States was to get a theological education and to be ordained so that I could actually take that education back to where I came from, which was Turkey, and offer it to the people for free, people who I felt they didn't have to learn another language to study theology. And so I wanted to go back to Turkey to be a missionary, to be involved in church planting. I think at the time there were only a couple of people who were originally Turkish and went to the West to get a theological education. I was going to be the third one, I believe, at the time. I'm happy to report that there are more now. There are more people from that part of the world who got a theological education. So I moved back after that time, and I moved back to Istanbul and started doing church planting and working with a interdenominational organization to evangelize and disciple in Turkey. And on my third year, I had a bit of a change of mind as I dug deeper into church fathers and the scripture and transmission of the scriptures and the whole history of the church. And that journey led me to the Anglican faith at the time. And the whole process, if you want to be ordained in the Church of England, it takes roughly about 6 years or 6.5 years. So it's taken
And
a
you're
long
not
time.
in Turkey anymore.
No. I moved. So all that process took me to residential training in Cambridge. And after that, I got ordained as a deacon in Lincoln Cathedral in 2022. And since last July, I'm overseeing 3 churches on my own.
I have literally 1,000 questions about this.
Sure.
But I'm not going to ask them.
Okay.
Not yet anyway, because I think a bigger question that I want at least for everyone to hear is how you even came to assent that Christianity is the way. Because you grew up in Turkey and you grew up Muslim. I don't want to tell the rest of the story because you did not stay Muslim. You went through quite a few evolutions. So I want you to share what was life as a child in Turkey like? What was your faith like, and where did it go from there?
I mean, I was born and raised in Smyrna, which is, you can find its name in the book of Revelation. It's one of the churches, 7 churches in the book of Revelation. It's known as Izmir today, which is right across Greece on the uttermost western part of Turkey, right next to the Aegean Sea. So I had a beautiful childhood. But because that city and its environment is quite non-religious or more secular, growing up, I wasn't exposed to any religious upbringing from my parents or anyone else, other than my grandmother, who made sure that I said my prayers before I went to bed. And they were all in Arabic at the time, so I just memorized them without knowing what they meant. But probably in high school, I became fascinated with reading philosophers like Descartes and Kant and Spinoza. And I think they taught me to be quite agnostic about religion and place more emphasis on intellect, my reasoning, and questioning things. But when I was in college, I went to a different city to go to college. So I majored in economics and business, which I hated with a passion. I wanted to be a musician at the time.
Oh yes,
Because
bassist.
I mean, at the time
Right?
I wanted to be electric. I was playing electric guitar,
Nice.
but I've always liked that. I still do heavy metal and progressive metal and all that
That's
stuff.
right.
Now I
Dream
play
Theater.
yes, Dream Theater. That's my favorite band in the whole world.
Yes.
So now I switched to bass. So I play bass now. But I wanted to be a musician and I wanted to play in bands and never considered becoming part of a 9-to-5 job world or even becoming wealthy or anything. But then being in a university all on my own, I began to consider some of my worlds out around me. And uh, I had never been able to shake off the sense of God in me. It's always been a part of my life, and I knew that he was there. I knew that he was a person, but I didn't know who he was. So the only option available to me at the time was the God of the Quran and Allah, basically. So I had this love for him, but I didn't know who I loved really. So I wanted to explore and to see, maybe because I was born and raised in a majority Muslim country, I have prejudices that are not justified. So I wanted to shed myself off of all of those prejudices and look at it from a really objective standpoint and read it on my own without being influenced by anyone else around me or my culture or even the abuses of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Wasn't your sister living in the States at the time and you were also thinking about visiting her?
Yeah, so she had moved, she got married and moved to Chicago at the time when I was in college. And part of me was thinking maybe I'd go there at some point to study music and see what I would do. And it was after I began reading the Quran and becoming more and more enmeshed in a faith world, I started thinking maybe I'll go there to visit my sister. And if I am admitted to a school, eventually I'm going to meet Christians. Eventually, this topic is going to come up, and I have to be able to defend my faith. And also, knowing at the time that Islam is the last and final religion, I have to tell those stupid Christians why they don't believe in the last prophet. They probably are ignorant about this faith. So that was my goal.
So
and I
you
needed
had the
to
thought, I'm going to go convert the Christians.
exactly, exactly. How? Because I mean, if you read the Quran, it's quite obvious that everything else pointed to the coming of Muhammad and Jesus, Moses, David, and all the other prophets were waiting for him. And I was thinking, well, probably I'll just pick up a Bible and I should be able to find those expectations. They have to be there because it's been talked about.
So you went
Yeah.
into reading the Bible asking the question, where did Jesus set up the arrival of Muhammad?
Yeah.
That is
But before that,
fascinating.
I had a desire to read the Bible, but because of the town that I was in, this was a small town which is Pisidian Antioch in the Book of Acts, that town. But I couldn't find a Bible in that town. That this was 2004, I believe, 2003 or 4-ish. I couldn't find a Bible. I couldn't find anyone that I could talk to, and I actually didn't want to go to a church or talk to a Christian. But there was no church either. But there was this little anecdote which affected me a little bit. I said my prayers one night. I went to bed, and I had this weird dream from which I woke up with panting and sweating, which never happens to me. I rarely dream. I sleep through most nights. But I woke up and I saw a man in my dream with white clothing, dazzling white clothing, and he was rising out of a grave, and a woman rushed to that grave and said, "He's not here, he's been taken away." So I woke up panting as if that was a nightmare, but it wasn't a nightmare, it was perfectly fine. But I had no concept to tie it with. Like I had no idea what it was about. It was just a
Yeah.
weird dream.
You'd never been exposed to that idea
No.
so
Three
that you
months
learned
after that,
to be able to fabricate it. Yeah.
yeah. As a Muslim, what you believe about Jesus is that he didn't die on the cross. It was someone else. There are different theories about it. So therefore, Jesus didn't die. And as someone who didn't die, he could not have been resurrected from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a topic in the Quran at all. So the idea of resurrection, something that I had never heard, let alone entertained as a possibility or not. But 3 months after that, I got a hold of a Bible for the first time, which is only the New Testament, and I started reading from Matthew, and all of it seemed a bit weird. It's all stories of someone's life, because if you compare the language of the Quran and the New Testament, it's absolutely different. The Quran is not a narrative, but the Bible is, and the Jesus in the Bible, in the New Testament, and Jesus in the Quran seemed like quite different. And when I came to Matthew chapter 27, I believe, I can't remember, which is a shame that I don't remember when the exact passage of the crucifixion is. 26 or 27, I don't
It's
know.
not terrible when it all starts to run together. It means you're in it a
Yeah,
lot.
towards the end of Matthew, where Christ is crucified. So when I first read that, and this is interesting because the Quran says he wasn't crucified. And a couple of pages later, when I read the resurrection account, I got so scared when I read it because it was exactly like what I saw in my dream. I remember my dream immediately. And the first reaction I had was close the book, throw it onto the floor, and kicked it across the room just to get it out from me. Like it was like a piece of spider that I wanted off of me, and I kicked it, looked at it with hate, and I didn't know what was happening to me at the time. So the New Testament, all crumbled up and abused, just sat at the corner of my room for about 3 weeks at least. I would come into my room from classes, look at it, and didn't know what to do with it. And one day I found a stick. I opened the window
You
and
found a stick?
I found a stick. I didn't even want to touch it. I thought it would, just by touching it, it would
I
have some
forgot
sort of
this.
an effect on me. So I found a stick. I tried to hold it with a stick and open the window so that I could actually throw it away off of the window outside. It bounced back from the other side of the window glass and landed on my desk, my study desk. I'm not exaggerating. This is very movie-like, but this is exactly how it transpired.
Forgot.
And just like this, and I was like, okay. And I did use words with F and other explicative words. And so I flipped it around, okay, and it's still in Matthew, at the end of Matthew. So, okay, I'm going to read this. So I continue on with Mark. Interesting. Luke. Similar. Interesting. John. That's really interesting. Acts. that's weird. That's not the Jesus that I was taught. Paul blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't put this down. I got to keep reading. So Peter, James, Hebrews, and everything else. So I remember closing the Bible that day around 10:30 p.m. I read the whole New Testament without knowing, because it was unlike anything I've ever read in my life before. And I realized this book and the book that I'd been reading, the Quran, could not have come from the same deity, or that deity has lied to people for 600 years, or that deity is bipolar. The content of the two cannot be coming from the same. I went to the theological department of the university I was studying, and I talked to the Islamic professors. So how come there are so many differences? I thought we all believed in the same God. I don't think I can believe that God, because that God seems to have lived among us as a human being. And they said, well, the one that you're holding, the book that you're holding, is a fabrication of the early Christians who corrupted the message of the true prophet Jesus. Okay, that's fine. May I please see the one that was given to Jesus, the actual revelation, so I could compare the two and see where the first Christians made their wrong. It's like there is no such text. Okay, really? So I think that point was the pivotal point in my life, that these professors couldn't show me a single text from the early first century which contained the words of Jesus of the Quran, basically. So I went to the theological department of the university I was studying and talked to the Islamic professors, and they said, well, we don't have any record of that Jesus saying things that are more in line with the Quran. So basically they said, well, all these texts have been written by human beings and are made up. So I decided to drop out of college and try to decide this on my own and see how many historical records that I could find from the first century about early Christians and Jesus, particularly from Jewish and Roman sources, because it doesn't matter how well the New Testament has been preserved if it were a lie in the beginning. So I mean, reading well-known names like Josephus, Tacitus, Pliny, and all those people talking about the same events at the same time with almost the same accuracy as Luke and other gospel writers made my confidence grow higher in the text of the New Testament. But things got harder for me afterwards, because now what do I do with this fact that this man who claimed to be God came back to life? I could have been fine with a dead Jesus who was crucified as a good man and as a martyr. I could have emulated him. I could have followed him as a principal, a good teacher. But if someone comes back from the dead, it's a whole different matter. And if that person claimed to be God incarnate, it's an entirely different matter. So I realized early on that I have to make a decision about this man, about this God who became man. And then the good thing about the Gospels in particular is that a lot of the controversies that Jesus got himself into with the Pharisees, most of my worldview at the time were exactly like the Pharisees. That's how I would have sided with. So in the end, it was more like a live conversation between me and Jesus every time he had a controversy with the Pharisees. And he would answer all of my questions about who God is and who he is not, mostly. I think he, bit by bit, he destroyed day by day my conception of God as a deity who is up there, who created me, sent me to the world to pass a test of righteousness versus wickedness, and would see if I passed the test in the end, and would send me either to heaven or hell based on what I've done. But what I found in Jesus was that I think I've already messed up, and I will keep messing it up if I'm left on my own. So after a college party, I came back home, and when I looked at everything I've read up to that point, particularly what I read in John 10 about him being a good shepherd and he having other sheep from not of their fold that he will call to himself, I felt like I was one of those. And when he said, no one can come to me unless the Father draws him to me, I felt that drawing slowly and slowly that I couldn't resist. I did everything in my power to resist, to find some reason, some good reason to ignore Jesus and just put him aside. But every day, every time I opened the New Testament, something would come up and would make it impossible for me to ignore him. So after one college party, I came back home, and for the first time in my life, when I looked at the cross, when he says it's finished, I saw God's justice and mercy meeting at the same place at the cross. And that's something I had never read in Kant, Descartes, Spinoza, the Quran, Hinduism, Buddhism, any other religion. You have to give up one for the other in any other religion. And here was a God who was not satisfied, who could have been satisfied with watching me, seeing if I could pass this test of life, knowing that I wouldn't pass that test anyway. He came and did something for me, and for the world. I think that night I understood that here's a story that I had never heard before, and it's very unlikely that I will ever hear a better one later. So I still had quite a bit of misunderstandings about Trinity. I didn't know, because for a Muslim to say Christ is God and Holy Spirit is God and Father is God, all of that stuff was still a bit hazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew one fact, that God did something for me which was very unlike God, for the love of me. And to that love, I couldn't say no, even if it was wrong at the time. That kind of love, I was ready to be wrong for that love.
Mm-hmm.
I said
Ready
I
to
could
sign up for that.
I could correct this later, but if I've never seen any love like this before. If I'm wrong about this love, may it be so. So I sat down and then started praying to Jesus as a Muslim. And I said, I may be blaspheming right now. And I want you to hear me. I want that Jesus of Nazareth to hear me, not as a prophet who died. So I think I became a Christian that night. I mean, I don't believe one becomes a Christian at one point in life.
Yeah.
We all becoming Christians every day. But that was a turning point for me to stop reading the Quran, stop following Islam, in essence. So that's how it happened. And I found a church 2 hours away from that city. And within about 6 or 8 months, I got baptized in a church where I was born, in Izmir.
Wow.
And as the time went on, I think other people in the church, particularly my elders, recognized some sort of a desire and calling in me to pursue ministry.
And
Sorry, I spoke too long and too much.
No. I'm sure people listening are like, please say more. We're going to keep mining this. So beautiful and good. Let's see. You also had the experience of some persecution in Turkey, correct? What happened there? What was that like? And when I say persecution, for those listening, what that means is real, legitimate opposition to one's conversion to Christianity or to the existence of Christianity. Any faith or people group can be persecuted in a sense, but we're talking about the persecution of the Christian church.
Yeah, when I first told my parents, I wasn't expecting that my parents would disown me, literally, for a while. So I got kicked out of the house for some time, but mostly in my college town. I just couldn't keep it to myself, what I found. So I started sharing with others, telling others, and everyone was surprised that someone like me would become a Christian, because I was nowhere near to make a decision like that. So it got to the local police, and there was a club of quite nationalistic party members. They pulled me to the side a couple of times to stop me, asked me to stop talking to others about Christianity. And there was one night where they grabbed me by the arms and pulled me into their room and kicked me around a little bit. So that was one experience that I had early on. But later on, I think in 2007, the defining moment for me was the very first Christian I ever met in my life, a Turkish Christian, with whom I prayed in my own tongue. They had been planting a church in a city in Malatya, which is in the middle part of Turkey, which hadn't seen a church for over 800 years. So they were planting a church there. And him, along with 2 other believers, they were martyred by 5 Muslim men. Their persecutors had been pretending to be seekers for quite some time. And then one day they went to their office, locked the doors, and they were going to film it to show it to the entire nation that we actually managed to convert these Christians back to Islam. So when my friends said, we will not deny Christ, and they withstood all the threats. They started stabbing them and slit their throats in the end. This was on April 18th, 2007. And at the time, I was translating John Foxe's The Book of Martyrs in the church building on my own when I received the call that our brothers were killed. So I went outside, went to a cafe, and started watching the TV news. And at the time, I felt like I'm next. Someone's going to come in and do the same thing to me. Thankfully, nothing of that sort happened. But putting my own brother in Christ into the grave, lowering him 6 feet under, and saying goodbye to him, it makes you feel like, what else is there? What worse can happen? We've done this. This is it. What else can happen? So that's it. So I'm glad. I'm not glad that it happened, but I'm glad that we, Turkish Church at least, got to experience that honor of giving their first martyrs in modern times. Because in the past, lots of Roman Catholic priests have been martyred in Turkey, but it had never been someone from our own, someone who's Turkish, who was killed. And that was right before I came to the US and
I remember.
Met you.
Mm-hmm.
So I came around 2008 to the US. So that's why I wanted to always come back to Turkey and do the same thing. And right before I left, I mean, I'm not at liberty to talk more about this, or give more information, but I also had been informed that some members of Hezbollah were after me right before I left for the UK. So something was either intervened by some security forces. I'm not told about the details, but they asked me to, in a particular week in 2021, to leave immediately.
I remember that.
Don't know what was behind it.
Yep. Wow. I remember. We were talking about go bags.
Yeah.
Fugitive life. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Going back to what we were talking about, and you're realizing that Christianity was different than different faiths, which I don't want to step over the moment that you lost some really dear friends of yours, by the way. And I know that you think about that a lot and you grieve that, which means that your faith is expensive. I used that language in a different podcast where I just described, like, well, this is costing me something. This is expensive. It's worth it, but it's not at no cost. Like the Bible talks about us taking up our cross and following him. You described martyrdom as an honor and a privilege in many ways. I didn't realize that you were translating the Book of the Martyrs at this exact moment that happened. That's really interesting that God would give you that lens through which to experience that. And so with such an expensive, there's so much good that comes from walking with Christ, so much benefit that it does make it worth it. Is it imperative? Would you say that it's imperative for people who are not Christians or who have a different worldview to convert? Why does that matter? Should people be compelled to go on the journey of either ruling in or ruling out officially Jesus Christ as the resurrected Lord?
The second part of your question, I would say yes. I think it's been shared to death, the C.S. Lewis's quotes about, what do you make of Christ? Is he a liar or a lunatic? You said he was a lunatic. I think I firmly believe that I don't understand people who look at Jesus and perceive him as he was a nice guy, he was a nice person, and see someone to be respected but not worshipped, not followed religiously. And he's kind of like one of the other characters like Socrates and Mahatma Gandhi or any other historical figure who deserves our respect. If you look at the totality of his life, he doesn't deserve our respect. He either deserves our ridicule, and he deserved every bit of that cross, or he deserves worship. I don't think there's any other middle ground. He was either a misguided, deluded, who should have been locked up in a mental institution for costing hundreds and thousands of people's lives afterwards, after he was gone from this world. he should not be respected for misleading all those people. So I firmly believe if when I meet
Us included.
yeah, exactly.
What a
So
waste our lives
so
will have been.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I wish there was a world where Jesus was a complete liar, and I would have been perfectly fine with going on in my life, not be in a position where I have to deal with my conscience, my life, my limitations at all.
Mm-hmm. It'd be awfully
But
convenient, wouldn't it?
yeah, absolutely. So do people have to believe in Jesus? I don't know, but they have to make up their minds about him. I don't think he could be dismissed as someone who's part of the history. He is the one, I believe, that should define your view of history. The BCAD thing or CE or BCE thing and all that stuff actually matters.
Yeah.
The world is different because of him. Or people should absolutely change the world and rid the world of Christians and Christianity if he wasn't who he said he was. Everyone should do their best to rid the world of Christianity and Christians if that story is not true.
Yeah, but here we are.
So, yeah. So I completely understand when some people have problems with the church. They've been hurt by it. They've been hurt by the institutionalized religion, other Christians, or Christianity in general. And I might come to a point like that in my life. And I've been hurt by other Christians. I've been hurt by the church. Sometimes just like the old Archbishop of Church of England, Michael Ramsey said, I hate the Church of England. I'm a priest of the Church of England, and sometimes I say that, but it will never change the fact that Jesus died on the cross and was resurrected from the dead for my justification. Everything else is a detail. Just like what I think it was Yaroslav Pelikan, who used to be a Lutheran church historian who later became an Orthodox, said, if Christ didn't rise from the dead, nothing else matters. If he rose from the dead, nothing else matters.
I like that.
So,
I like that. And I relate to that. I think there are some who would say it's still a worthy exercise to understand the peripherals of the beliefs and the little micro meanings of different verses in the Bible, obviously. But as long as we keep them where they belong as peripheral and not central, they do have a practical application. I think we were talking about baptism and, all the different views of how baptism works. Same with the communion or the Eucharist and the Catholic view of it versus the Protestant, and even within Protestantism, different views. And so it's like, man, the command is to be baptized. The command is to participate in the Eucharist. And what happens after that, we can enjoy conversation about. We can explore with our imaginations. We can attempt to read those things with as much integrity of the scriptures as we possibly can, and we're responsible to. But the first command is to meditate on the good news of the gospel and the form of those two acts. They point us to the very thing that is the most important central thing, which is that Jesus died for our sins and was raised, and we get to join him in new life in the resurrection. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And you can spend a whole life trying to figure out what that means.
Which is so fun.
Yeah.
That's the fun part, is I think, we can't exhaust God anyway. He's an infinite being. And so we get to explore him for all of eternity and understand him and learn more about him forever. That's the real joy. So, yeah. UJ, what are you excited about right now?
What am I excited about? Just the fact that I've just paused shouldn't give me any concerns that I'm not excited about anything. Generally, I mean, you've known me. I've always been this 5 minutes away from being dead. So my general disposition is quite calm and contemplative, and not necessarily thinking about exciting.
Maybe excited's the wrong word.
You remember when I first came to the US, there were some cultural things that really were interesting to me. One was when people were asking, like, how are you doing when I was walking around the coast? Because I would literally stop and was ready to tell them, like, how I was doing that day. It's like, no, you don't do that. They're just asking you. That's just a way of greeting people. The other one is calling things awesome
or exciting. So having lived there for 7 years and having lived in the UK 5 years, I think still those words sometimes...
I'm so American.
No, that's perfectly fine. For something to be really exciting to me, I think it should happen to me with me being unaware. Then I realize, oh, something is exciting.
Like you got an autographed copy of a Dream Theater CD. You'd be excited about that.
I would be excited about being in the queue, not obtaining it. Because once it's obtained, that's the whole, okay, yeah, so what do I do with this? So I'm just going to put it away. And the whole point of it is just to be on that path to receiving that. The moment of seeing them, giving me their autograph would be the exciting part, not having autographed, not having it. Yeah. So in that sense, I don't know. I don't have any answer. So I'll see what excites me in half an hour.
In half an hour. Well, so applying that to heaven, because we'll be excited. We're excited for heaven, right? But do you think we'll spend all eternity excited? Because there's just more?
That's such a Christian thing to say. Absolutely, because when you think about God, who is the source of all being, I think we will get to experience what to be is, which is something that we've never experienced in this life. No one can experience.
We've lived in the shadow.
Because we are being in the moment. We've been given our existence. We've never experienced something who existed in himself, without a beginning and without an end. So being exposed to that being, to be in the presence of the being, like the actual being of all beings. I think to me that's the saddest part about, referring back to your question about whether someone should accept Christ or not, or the whole issue of heaven and hell, just to lose the opportunity to experience that. Not the heaven itself, but the heaven will give, like all the joys. However different ways it's been described in over centuries, the nature of it, the pleasures that it gives. I think we'll be so consumed by the being of God, it'll be completely impossible to look at anything else. So it's like, I think I liken it to the experience of falling in love first. Like if you remember your first time that you fell in love with someone, I don't know how old were you at the time?
20.
Really? It took you 20 years to fall in love with someone?
Okay, fine. I guess if I count John, 17. 17.
All right. So I was 10 when I actually fell in love with someone. Because she blew my socks off, and I was like, oh, this is like another existence. So it's like having that moment, whatever it is for other people. I don't know. It's like living that moment every second over and over and over and over again. To me, that would be heaven, to be in love with them over and over and over, and not without.
One time, no, you go.
No, without making any effort. Is what I was going to say.
Yeah, one time I was at a youth conference and I was teaching a seminar on heaven, and I described heaven as orgasmic.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
It has to be.
It has to be.
It has to be. Has to be. What do they say?
They were like, oh my gosh, can she say that? Is she allowed to say that? Yeah, oh no. Yeah. It was great. I mean, I love shock value. And that is actually true. If like whatever we think of as the highest pleasure on earth, it pales in comparison to the pleasures we will experience when we see him as he is, when there's no veil in front of our faces anymore. And I think all the pleasures of earth, like the true pleasures of earth, like food and community and depth of intimacy and relationship and beauty and nature and art, these are, I don't want to diminish them as simply shadow pleasures, because I think all of these are meant to stand as foreshadows of what is to come. They're meant to give us this little appetizer of why the joy of the Lord should even matter to us at all. And I think that should compel us. Like, why would we want to sign up for a system that gives us less of that when we could have more.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, well put. Thank you.
No, thank you, UJ. I'm so grateful for our friendship.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's good.
So
really
am I supposed to ask you questions in this, or is it?
You want to ask questions? You have questions? Yeah, it's a back and forth. Sure.
That will be the end of your show if I start asking questions.
What you got?
Oh,
What
yeah.
you got? What do you want to know?
Kidding. I'm
Okay.
kidding. But Tim, you can tell me a little bit more about your answers to the questions that you've asked.
What did I ask? I don't even remember.
How have you changed? How has he revealed himself to you in the world? What's it about him that makes you going?
The word that's coming to mind is faithfulness. I think the
Hmm.
longer you live, the more you go through things that, when you were young, like 10 or whatever, you thought would be the worst thing in the world, if this is the worst. And I haven't suffered as much as some, but we have all suffered. And the older you get, the more you suffer. And the more perspective you get on life, and that's true too. And I think to find God solid in the midst of those, to find that there is a foundation that's sure, to find that if I establish myself on the rock, I cannot be shaken. And that's a great gift, because if I have enough data sets of him being solid, if I have enough examples of him never failing me thus far, why would I expect him to fail me again? So, our fears of what happens if I get in a car accident, what happens if I lose, a limb, or lose a person, or get really sick, or develop cancer, or, fail at XYZ. And we can have anxiety about those things, and those can be unpleasant. But the knowledge and the faith that those will not be the end of me, and those don't have to be the end of my hope, is such a gift, because I can traverse life with as much wisdom as possible, and know that as I operate in wisdom and as I operate in obedience, there is just nothing that can happen to me that can touch me. Not really. And I'm sure you experienced that in what happened to your friends when they lost their life. Like, I'm sure there was, on the one hand, obviously a deep grief and loss, and you didn't want that to happen to you. And I don't think we need to go putting ourselves actively in harm's way foolishly. And you didn't have to fear it the same way that someone who doesn't have a rock would. So I struggle to know how people live life without that assurance. I think it'd be really difficult, outside of numbing out, to be honest with you.
I think it's a more tangible things like family, friends, and sometimes job. But their transitory nature is quite apparent to them when they...
Right.
In my own parish work, I do sometimes 2 or 3 funerals a week. So I meet with the families and listen to their stories. I bury them at their funeral, and sometimes go visit patients in the hospitals to give them their last rites. I think those are the most precious moments in my ministry, because they remind me that none of those people care anything about what's left in the house, what they've collected, what they're leaving behind, who's going to get what. They truly want to know whether they can die in peace with a clear conscience and with a clear mind, with the knowledge, if they're not believers, with the knowledge that they are loved and cared for at that moment by their friends and families. So in the end, it all comes back down to be loved and to love. And I get that when people who don't believe in any religion, or particularly in Christianity, if they do have that, that is meaningful, and I think that satisfies them to a certain extent. But I do really want to know, I'm not sure if anyone's been completely honest with me or with each other, whether they would like that understanding of love, or their taste of love, their desire for love, to extend for all eternity. I know lots of people who are completely content with their life without any God, without any needing for God, and they are loved and they love, so they're completely satisfied. That's perfectly fine in and of itself. I'm not sure if anyone is truly honest with anyone else in the world, whether they are... I know that they're sad that they cannot take that love that they're experiencing beyond the grave. They know that they're going to be loved after their death. People will come to visit their graves. They will cherish their memories. They will always love them. But the whole point of life cannot be just that passive. Everyone should be able to love for eternity, not just to be loved. To me, when I think of Jesus, I think both are going to be true in our case. That I'm going to be able to love, and I'm going to be able to be loved for eternity. When I say eternity, I don't mean endless times. I mean love was not going to cease to exist. That love is not going to end with the expiration date of my biological body. It's not tied to this flesh. We're aging. We can see every day something's changing. But I rest content with the knowledge that one thing is not changing, that I am loved, despite the person I am. Yeah. And for that,
Amen.
I want to be able to love him forever. Anyway, this got too cuddly. Sorry. We could talk about more.
Too cuddly? UJ, is there such a thing? There's no such thing as too cuddly. That's a great note to end on. Let's talk about going woke and returning from being woke another time. How's that?
All right. Okay. I mean, I'm
excited.
perfectly happy
That's
to
a little
do that.
preview, everyone, for when I have UJ back on. UJ went woke, and he's not woke anymore.
No.
This is exciting.
I mean that's probably another conversion story of my life, because
I can't wait.
I think it was in terms of its effects in my social life and in my faith in general, leaving Islam was a lot less dramatic than leaving the world of whatever you call it, progressive/liberal Christianity. I've seen more damage done to my life from within Christianity on that front than the Muslims or from Islam.
Woo! Let's talk about that soon. All right, tune in for another episode of Another Perspective. Thank y'all for joining UJ and I. As you can see, we have a very special friendship that has spanned many years now and will continue forward until we both die, and then we will have eternal love forever in heaven.
Yes.
Can't wait. All right. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you.
Of
Bye-bye.
course. Bye.